guys. Now, welcome to What If Deku Was Michael Myers. Sorry for the long wait on this series. It's here now. So let's get into play. Now, if you're asking why do I change my voice when I do my horror series, this to sound more scary, to sound more in tone with this series. So now, let's begin. We don't really know too much about what goes on in little Izuku's head. Ever since his parents took him to the quirk doctor and he had got the news that he didn't have a quirk, he was distraught, broken, destroyed. It was as if something left the boy, a hollow shell, and something else entered. From that day on, Izuku didn't really say anything. He spent most of his time being silent, making masks in his room. See, Izuku had an artistic nature to himself. Very artistic nature, but he seems to round himself with making masks. So, Izuku would spend time to himself. But as the time grew on, Izuku, this evil nature, would start to get noticed, would start to grow in Izuku. To one day when Izuku was 8 years old, he stabbed Inko profusely. See, the woman was in her room and she was brushing her hair after getting out of the shower, and she would be stabbed profusely by her son, crying, wondering why. But Izuku would just look at her with a cold, motionless face with nothing in his eyes but pure darkness. As Inko would die out, Izuku would stare out the window before retreating downstairs in a walking fashion. Now, Hisashi would find Izuku. He would call out to Izuku, "Izuku! Izuku! What did you do?" But Izuku wouldn't say anything. Fast forward to when Izuku was 21 years old. See, everything played out normal in the hero society. Everything was normal, but Izuku was still behind locked doors. See, Hisashi put Izuku into a mental asylum. We're not going to say 21. We're going to say he was 15 years old. I'm sorry, I retconned that. So Izuku was 15 years old, and for 15, he's grown exceptionally tall. Izuku reaches at 6.5 meters in height. 6'5". Now, this Dr. Loomis, would be talking to Izuku, having regular visits to Izuku. And this is what the doctor would say. Testing, 1, 2. I'm here talking with Izuku Midoriya. Ever since the tragic incident of him killing his mother, he hasn't said a word since. It's been 7 years trying to reach him, and he hasn't said anything yet. I see no reason behind this boy. I see no conscience. I see nothing but pure and is simply evil. The boy has lost all reason. It's as if he's just a shell of pure destruction. That concludes our day for today, Izuku. And Izuku wouldn't just say nothing. He would just look, stand up, and just walk away. Now, Dr. Loomis would go to the warden and he would say, "You are to keep him here. Under no circumstances is he to ever leave this building, because if he does, God help who he encounters." That boy, behind that boy's eyes, I've never felt anything like this. And the warden would be telling Dr. Loomis to calm down. But Dr. Loomis says, "No, I will not. Because you don't understand that Izuku Midoriya is evil." Warden, I've looked behind that boy's eyes and I've never seen the malicious intent from anybody in this world that I feel from him. All for one doesn't even give me. He gives me that sinking feeling, but he is not as evil as that boy right there is. It is as if the devil is looking right at me. Now, on one tragic day, Zuko would manage a breakout where happened, and the whole thing would happen. And Zuko would manage to break out of the asylum that he was in, going back to his childhood home, managing to go back to his childhood home. Now, on his encounters, he would encounter basically a rundown car shop, well, car fixing place. And he would go in there and he would kill this man in a brutal way. Just like you seen in Halloween 2018, where he just rips the guy's jaw off and throws it to the ground. Yeah, violent. If you don't like violent, it's going to get very violent from there. Now, as Deku killed the people that were there, he would don his overalls and the boots that the man was wearing and leave taking the men's car. Now, once Deku gets back to his childhood home, breaking into there, he would know that it was closed off, basically as a crime scene. Nobody could rent out the apartment because it was just closed off, so he'd break out in there, and he would go back to the place where his father had a mask. See, his father had a Halloween mask, and he basically kept it inside his drawer, so nobody really took the stuff out of the Midoriya's household. Hasashi would be dead, though, suffering the same fate like in the Halloween Rob Zombie's version. He shot himself in the head. He thought he was to blame for his son turning out the way he did. He didn't know which route to take, so he chose the coward's way out. So Deku would find his mask and don his Michael Myers mask. And as in the image you see, that's how Deku would look. Now Deku would be stalking a bunch of people, and he would often kill a few here and there. But one of the most people he would stalk is Mount Lady. See, Mount Lady was very famous around the people. Oh, she was a very hero, but she would be stalked by someone. She wouldn't notice it. She would just feel this urge to look out, and she would see this guy in this white mask just watching her. Very ruffled white mask, as if age had affected it. Now, as she's looking at this guy, she just glances away, but then she looks back at the area where he was standing, and he was gone, not to be standing there again. She was confused because she could have sworn she'd seen someone standing there, but she decided not to put too much thought into it. Now, when Mount Lady gets home and she gets into the shower, she hears her front door open. So Mount Lady gets out of the shower, dries herself out, and puts on her pajamas, but she wonders who just opened her door. She could have sworn she locked it. So she went to lock her door, but she hears a ruffling in her room. So now Mount Lady gets on their guard, and she gets in an attack position, ready for any intruder that's in her house. Nothing could have prepared her for this. When she walked in the room, she couldn't find anything. She checked everywhere. It's strange. She could have sworn she heard a ruffling in her room. So Mount Lady just decided that it was nothing. Made sure she did a sweep of the house, but nobody was there. It's as if nobody entered at all. She didn't think to check the bathroom because she was already in there. Now, Mount Lady would be in her room, and this is where Deku would easily creep out of the bathroom stall. Now, Mount Lady wouldn't hear anything because this is just how it is. Michael Myers is a silent and creepy bastard. So as Deku just easily creeps into a room, he grabs Mount Lady by the throat. Before she even tries to grow into a gigantic form, he plunges the knife directly into her chest, over and over and over, repeatedly, as she coughs up blood. Now, Mount Lady does intend to grow huge like she did, but that only extends the wound and make it more bad for her to just shrink back down. Now, as she does this, Deku, basically, in the destruction of her apartment, Deku walks towards her, she on the ground, crawling for someone to help her. Deku grabs her by the hair and just, as you see in the Halloween 2 Rob Zombie's version, he just starts wailing on her over and over as she screams out in agony and pain. And Deku just drops her lifeless body on the ground, his knife soaked in blood, as Deku just walks away. Mount Lady is dead. Now, Deku targets Kamui Woods, killing him very, very easily. He didn't even need to basically do anything. He just snuck up on Kamui Woods, grabbed him around the neck, and just his hand just squeezed Kamui Woods' head in and just cracked his skull. Now the next target Deku was facing, he's just walking. Anybody he sees, he just kills easily. Now the next person he sees is Ochaku Uraraka. Now Ochaku was just casually walking one night and she was just having out with her friends until her friends decided to say, "Look at that stranger over there. Hey, freak, what are you looking at?" Deku wouldn't move. He would just be looking at them. Very ominous eyes. Then he would decide to walk. And Ochaku would say, "You shouldn't be talking to people like that. That guy could have been really dangerous. Who else would be wearing something like that?" And she would say, "Well, someone needs to talk to a creep like that. He probably sees us as attractive girls and wants to basically, well, violate our bodies." And Ochako would say, "That's not the issue. He probably is some insane psychopath that wants to kill us. You shouldn't say things like that to draw attention." And she would say, "Calm down, Ochaku. You're getting way over your head right now. Let's just continue on. Are you coming to my house tonight? I am babysitting and I want someone to help me with Lindsay." And she'd say, "Of course I'm coming, but I have to babysit Tommy Doyle too, so maybe we can share." And she would say, "I don't care, it's just as long as I have a friend over there to talk with, because Lindsay can be annoying sometimes." And she would say, "Well, Tommy's not that annoying. He's all right. The kid's kind of growing on me." And she would say, "Oh, okay." Now Deku would be watching them from afar as he disappeared. Well, when they looked at for him again, he was gone. So when they found, well, fast forward, this would be the part where they're all at the house babysitting, and Lindsay's, well, not Lindsay's, Otaku's friend. We're gonna say her name is Momo. Now in this story, we're not gonna go quirk base. The quirks in this world the quirks in this world, basically, we're going quirk based, but to an extent. To an extent. Now, once everything's settled and they're all having fun, eating popcorn, carving pumpkins, it is Halloween night. And this is where Deku attacks the boyfriend of Momo. Now he pulled up just to see Momo for Halloween because she invited him over. But before he could get there, he was grabbed around the neck and stabbed directly in the side. Now Deku would lift the guy up with the knife and plunge into his side as the guy is coughing up blood. And then Deku just slings him to the ground. Now this is where the guy is trying to crawl away. Now Deku reaches in the guy's truck and pulls an axe out of the truck. And the guy looks at Deku and he's saying, "Please don't kill me. Please, please, somebody help me. Help me." As he's screaming out for someone to come to his aid, as Deku just wails on the guy, hitting him in the back multiple times with the axe, as the guy just screams out in agony and he's dead. Deku clings onto the axe, holds onto it, and walks to Momo's house. Now, Dr. Loomis, he talks to the warden and he says, "Warden, what have you done? How did he escape?" The warden says, "I do not know, Loomis. I have told you repeatedly." Then Loomis cuts him off. "Look at this place. You don't see this? This is a massacre. He's killed. Do you not see what this boy is capable of? You thought I was lying to you?" "Yes, Loomis. Yes, Loomis, I thought you were lying to me because that is a 15-year-old boy. Who would have said a 15-year-old boy could do something like this? Well, prove me wrong because now I am shocked." And he says, "I didn't want to prove you wrong. I didn't even want him to escape. God knows I would have wanted him to just stay behind a cell. Didn't want this. I should have known this place wouldn't be able to hold something as evil as him. The only way you can do anything to that guy is to kill him and rid this earth of a parasite like Izuku Midoriya." And this is where Loomis would leave the Smith Grove Institute, insane asylum. He would leave that place and journey to the city of Japan, I think it's in. Yeah. Whatever it is. But so now that Loomis is there, he's looking for Izuku. Now Deku, he's stalking Momo, and 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 Deku, he's When he stalks, he's watching every move that she's made because she's out washing clothes because she told everybody that she needs to wash some clothes for tomorrow because she has a big thing. She's planning on going out with her boyfriend tomorrow. He's supposed to come over, but he probably had something to do, so she's just worried that he's not answering her phone calls or texts. Meanwhile, Deku has him strung up to a tree, basically in the Michael Myers fashion. Has him strung up or hung up in a weird fashion like some kind of decoration. Now, Momo feels this suspicion, like she's being watched, like someone is watching her. All of a sudden, the door just come thrusting open and Momo's grabbed around the neck. Now she's fighting profusely, trying to get this guy off her, but he keeps slamming her into the wall over and over and over. Then all of a sudden Deku just lifts her up as she just punching him in the face, telling her to let him go, let him go. She starts to use her quirk and creation, but Deku crushes her throat and she just she's about to lose conscience. She can't even focus on using her quirk right now. Deku lifts her up in the air and now her feet is dangling as she just gasps out for air, and Deku takes the knife and just rips it directly through her neck. And Momo then drops to the ground, trying to stop the blood from pouring through her throat. Deku walks out of the washroom that she was in, and then he just looks at her. He turns around and looks at her. Then he tilts his head to the side, and then tilts his head to the other side. And then Momo is slowly just looking at this guy as she bleeds out and then dies. Deku takes down the light string and wraps it around her neck and then strings her up to the position. Then he turns off the light. So whoever finds her when they turn on the light is going to be incredibly shocked or incredibly scared. And Deku wants that. He wants to install fear. Now, Ochaku is wondering. She's sitting there watching. Everyone's watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 1978 version, and because it's a classic, and they're wondering what's taking Momo so long. Lindsay says she's out there. She's been out there for quite a while. Will you go check on her, Ochaku? And she says yes. And then Ochaku says, where is this washroom at? And then she says, oh, it's across the street. Momo's house over there. Remind me, why do you guys have two houses? And she says, well, we have one house across the street where we live at, and then we just have a wash house. Basically, we just turned the house into basically a laundromat. And she would say, well, that's not weird. So basically, then Ochaku would tell the kids to basically stay there, and she locks the door and she goes to journey off to find Momo. Now, once she goes over there to find Momo, she turns on the light. Ochaku is horrified at what she sees. She sees Momo strung up, dead, and she falls and screams out, saying, Momo, no. She starts to cry, but then she sees Momo's boyfriend hanging from a tree as he comes swinging out of nowhere, scaring the living shit out of Ochaku. Ochaku is gasping for air. The sight at what she sees is horrifying her, and then she sees this guy in a white mask starts to walk towards her. Now, she gets up, but then she gets cut on the arm, like fast. Like Deku just takes the knife and drags it across her arm and it cuts through her shirt. Now Chaku falls to the ground and she starts to use a quirk, but Deku dodges it and she missed. And Deku then cuts her on her side, digging the knife into her side, like cuts her. And Ochaku sees that she's filled with fear, so she decides to run. She probably can't handle this guy. Is this guy a villain or something? So she starts to take off, and Deku is just walking casually. She gets to the door and starts banging on the door and says, please let me in, you guys. Tommy! And she starts to bang on the door profusely, and she's yelling out Tommy and Lindsay's name. And as Deku's getting closer and closer, she bursts in the door and locks the door and tells them to call the police and go upstairs now. And she tells them to do as she is terribly scared. She gets on the ground and starts to hide as she's looking around, wondering where Deku's going to come in, and they forgot they left the window open. As she starts to cry, and then she starts to shake. Her body starts to tremble as Deku comes from off the couch and starts to try to lunge at the knife at her, and she sticks it in the neck with the pin needle. And then Deku falls on the ground unconscious from that. She did manage to jab Deku directly in the neck, a good length with that pin needle. So as she goes up the stairs and she tells them that she managed to kill the boogeyman. Lindsay and Tommy says you can't kill the boogeyman. The boogeyman is immortal. He's never gonna die. And she says she did kill him. They look behind him and sees that he's still right there. Deku is still there, and they scream out. And this is where they run. Lo, sorry about that. Ochaku manages to hide the two kids in a room to which she had to go in another room and hide from Deku. She literally had to hide from him. Deku walks around searching for her. Each room he searches, makes sure he can check, leave no stone unturned. All of a sudden he came into one room. She's in there hiding.
You'll float too.